an executive with expertise in building and scaling business across multiple industries, including financial service industries, fintech, and education. On his free time, he's an avid mountaineer. So please welcome Sandeep Laxman.
All right, so for the folks who are standing at the back, you can take a seat as well, unless you're like me and you like to stand. We have places in the front, and don't worry, it's not school, so I will not, ask too many questions. Maybe a few. All right, wow. This is my first talk in Philippines, actually. So it's a pleasure to be in front of you. Incidentally, there's some people I've already met before, and I didn't realize it. And of course, some of you I met just before we started here, so it's good to have all of you here. So how many of you here are co-founders in a startup? Show of hands. Okay, that's pretty significant. How many of you are working in a startup? Good. How many of you want to start a startup and not started yet? Oh wow, so all of you are either working in a startup or a founder. Okay, that's pretty awesome. By the way, am I audible there at the back, Chris? Yeah. No? Yeah. Okay. All right, so if I'm not audible, let me know. I can modulate my voice to be louder, right? So today we're going to talk about building unicorns. I was a founder, but I wasn't a unicorn. But I'm going to talk about what I have seen through my experience at Amazon. I've been at AWS for over 6 years. I've built the fintech business for India, and I now build it for Asia Pac. And in this course of time, I've seen, a number of fintechs becoming unicorns. And I'm going to talk to you about some things that I see which will be relevant for you. I'm going to focus more on the early stage because I think a lot of you are early stage. So I'm going to focus more on that. And we will talk about it, right? So a couple of disclaimers. This is not a comprehensive list. For that, I will need a lot more time and a lot more time from you as well. This is what I have observed. And if there are questions, I will take them during or at the end. So if you have any questions, please just raise your hands and I'm happy to answer it. For those who are watching it online, you can put it in your chat and I'm happy to answer it. So they will let me know what the questions are, right? So feel free, don't think like, hey, is my question silly or not, just ask it. Remember, if you're always thinking, always remember this. Newton discovered gravity because he asked a silly question called, why did the apple not fall up, right? So there's no such thing as silly questions, right? So just ask. All right, the very first thing, this is the most important because I see a lot of founders don't get this immediately. If you're starting a startup, and I can see a big nod from an experienced founder at the back, right? When you're starting a startup, your main competition is going to be established players. You're disrupting a space. So your biggest competition is established enterprises, right? Now in this competition, what's going to happen is established enterprises have almost everything in their favor. They have a lot more people with them. They have a lot more funds at their disposal. If you're in fintech, that is, you're regulated. They have access to regulators. They have access to industry bodies. And they already have a set of customers. But there's just one thing that they don't have that you have, and that is speed of execution, right? This is really important. So as a startup, your biggest focus should be on speed of execution because that is your only advantage, right? Until at least you start addressing them, right? So if you look at a startup, and I'll take you to the startup life cycle. As money comes in, you start solving these problems. But when you start at the early stage, the most important is speed of execution. And if that's not your top priority, you got to make it your top priority. You got to focus on that. Make sense? Any questions? Again, please just raise your hands and ask. Yeah?
Why is speed of execution start with the established enterprises?
Because what happens is, in established enterprises, it becomes bureaucratic, right? You have many layers. So it's not true for all, but for most of them, there has to be a number of approvals before anyone can start a new project, right? So let's take example of payments, right? Now, if you take a market like Philippines or any developing market, India or Philippines, like Philippines right now, right? It's very interesting to me. Why? Because there's so much cash payments happening, right? Card is not used much. And now you see like QR codes coming in, right? Now QR codes will directly compete with the cards companies, right? People who sell credit cards. They also compete with cash. Now, will a card company launch QR codes? Not necessarily, because the margin is lesser, right? So they will take a lot of time internally to estimate whether it makes sense for them to cannibalize their own business or not. So they delay that decision. There's a lot more study that they need to do, which you as a startup don't need to do. And that's why speed of execution is slower in enterprises. It takes a lot more effort to get going, right? That's why when you see, if you go to like companies that want to innovate, they'll have a position called Chief Digital Officer or Chief Innovation Officer, because it's his job to ensure that the enterprise starts innovating now, right? And the reason you have that position is to make sure that innovation can be done, because it's not easy. You as a startup are small, and hence speed of execution is faster. Make sense? All right. Welcome, welcome. Please grab a seat. This place here in the front. All right. So the big question for you is this. Can you get distribution faster than the enterprise gets its product right? Please come in the front. You're not penalized. We've got empty spaces here. Yeah, please come here. There's place near the window as well. It's a very nice position. Yeah, please. So this is a key question you need to ask. You need to solve for, right? Every startup solves for this question, is to get distribution. Can you get distribution to customers before the enterprise gets its product right? And that's really important, because the enterprise already has distribution. You don't, right? So your aim is to get the distribution right first. That's a big goal for you. Now this is a startup life cycle. How many of you have seen this before? Show of hands. Okay, few of you. So let's take you through the startup life cycle. So this is in the early stage where you're looking to get a problem solution fit, right? That is called minimum viable product. And I will take you through that process a little bit more in detail. But the minimum viable product is a minimum product that gives you, that essentially either confirms or denies your hypothesis, right? And it tells you whether the solution you have is working or not. Whether it scales or not is different. Oops. Whether it scales or not is a different question. But essentially whether it's working or not, right? And what happens is during the MVP process, there's a lot of iterations which actually happen here. So you may not, in fact, very, very often, I don't see the product market fit being, coming in the very first attempt. It's very rare. You have to do multiple iterations, right? And I'll take you through a few examples actually. And after that, once you get the product market fit, right? So MVP is your minimum viable product. That is to test your hypothesis. Once you get that, you build out your product and get a product market fit. And after that is when you scale. So a lot of you from what I've discussed are essentially in this range right now. Channel is where you're figuring out your distribution. And here is where you've figured out your distribution and you're growing. So your goal as founders or employees in a startup is to make sure your startup survives this journey. Because there's something that's not shown in this journey, and that's at every step, there's actually cliffs that you can't see, that some of you will fall into, accidentally or purposefully, right? So let me take you through this thing called Lean Startup. Have you read this book called Lean Startup by Eric Weiss? Yeah? It's a good book. And essentially what he says in Lean Startup is, you got to learn and you got to adapt, right? And I'm going to take you through this process very, very quickly. So most startups know the problem, but they don't know what is the precise problem that they are trying to solve, right? So for example, you are trying to solve the problem for payments in jeepneys, right, in transportation. But when you start exploring the problem, you realize that there are more hurdles than you expected, right? So you're still not, so while you know the problem vaguely, you don't know it specifically, right? That's what it is here. So what does the lean startup method say? It is a few simple steps. Again, simple is not easy, there's a difference, right? So for example, anyone knows the difference between simple and easy?
That's difficult. Simple is when you listen to your wife. Easy is when it's tough to do.
Let me give you another example. Well, so simple is, anything that's simple is typically not easy, right? So running a marathon is very simple. You start running, run for 42 kilometers and stop. Is it easy? No. Right? So simple and easy is not necessarily the same, right? So it's 3 simple steps. First is a simple implementation of your idea. Next is a minimal set of core features. Lastly is release it and listen to your users. It looks really simple, but it's not easy, right? And I'll give you an example. Let's say you're trying to solve let's say there are no vehicles yet. You're trying to create an MVP of a vehicle that can transport people. That is not a car with just the wheels and no hood. It's a cycle, right? The cycle is an MVP. The end product might be the car. Get what I'm saying? It's not necessarily what you think it is. So let's take an example. So firstly, your MVP should not take in huge investments. You want to keep it very simple. The aim is to put the hypothesis to test, get the result, and iterate on it, right? So anyone know what this is?
That's a mouse, the original.
That's actually correct. Believe it or not, this is the first version of the mouse, right? And imagine, like, it's made up of wood. There's an aluminum cylinder downstairs. It doesn't even go left and right. It just, look at this. It just goes up and down, right? It just goes up and down. But the thing is, this was the very first implementation of a mouse to just test whether humans can use it. This was the MVP of the mouse. Today, you see the mouse as touch screens on your phone. You use your fingers. If the mouse didn't exist, we would not have had GUIs, graphical user interfaces. We would have not had touch screens, right? It's a linear. Make sense? Right? So think of the simplest, for those of you who are starting, think of the simplest. And even if you're started a startup, you're trying to launch, a version of the product, trying to launch, maybe a premium version of the product. Think of it, what is the simplest way I can launch this, right? Like sometimes it's as simple as a sign-up page. So for example, the guys at Buffer, they actually did this. They put up a simple sign-up page. They didn't have the product ready, and they said, hey, tweet whenever you want. Put your tweets in. You can tweet whenever you want, and they put up a sign-up page. And through that, they saw the demand, and they said, hey, this is worth building. So sometimes it can be as simple as a sign-up page, right? Most people think product development. Yes, go on.
How about real estate?
Sorry.
In real estate startups, needs a lot of, how can you simplify the MVP for that?
Okay, question is how can you simplify MVP for real estate startups? So I don't know real estate, but what I would say is test your hypothesis in a small market, right? In a very small subsegment of your market and see if it works, right? So it could be like if you're a student, housing for students, for example, or in a particular area of the country, right? So I'm not an expert on real estate, so I can't tell you that. But you got to figure out what is a small test that you got to. That's the problem actually you're trying to solve. Yes.
No, I was just going to say that I think overall from what we're getting from you, it's not just one particular idea, it's really any idea. Once you identify the problem that you have and you try to implement it in a small scale, and find the right customer for it, and then see the feedback, and if it's from there, and then start growing it.
Yes. In fact, start with the problem and then go to the solution. So don't do the other way around. The issue with ideas is people start with an idea and then try to find a problem to solve. Right? You want to do the other way. You want to have the problem ready and then make sure the problem is big enough. Do a small hypothesis to test your solution. If not, reiterate until you find the right solution and then scale. Yes?
Sorry, Sandeep. Just interesting listening to this. Would you think that the one of the key things that's missing in this formula between the problems and the solutions is actually people? Because a lot of times, I've iterated a couple of startups. A lot of fail. Let's just say 80% of them fail, right? And a lot when I track back and look at the trends of why I fail 80% of the time, was because it's always trying to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, we always thought about find a problem. Of course, schools don't teach you this, right? Schools say let's go to solutions first. So find a problem, build the solutions. Find a problem, build the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, I kind of realized that, would you think it is right that, in your opinion, that the people element is missing in this problem? So you find a problem, you build the solutions, and then you worry about who do I sell this to? Because in every problem, there's a lot of stakeholders, right?
We will come to that. So that's a very interesting question, and we'll come. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. So the question that what's your name?
But
Sorry?
Banana.
Bunaya. Had was that, how important is the people part of the problem, right? And when he says people, he means customers. That's actually very important. And I'll actually cover this a little later, because at Amazon, we have a process that we do which essentially addresses this. And I've kept that for a little later, but that's a very interesting question, and I will address it a little later, on how do you identify the correct customer to be sold. Because sometimes you might have a customer, you might have a solution, but it might not fit in the price point of that customer, right? That happens. You don't think of it until someone tells you, but it does happen. So how do you think of all these? So I'll cover a process that we follow at Amazon for this, right? Make sense? Okay, any questions online right now, Nisha? No? Okay, all right, so product development, a lot of you think, when you start off, you think it's linear. It's actually not. It's more like this, right? And each time you're going down here, each time you do this, it's essentially a reiteration, right? It's a failed prototype. It's a failed hypothesis. Until you get the product market fit, this is where your product market fit is, and this is where you grow, right? So let me ask you this question. So there was a startup called Audio, and they created a site to share podcasts. Have any one of you heard of Audio? It's a very big company, and it's been in the news lately. They went through this exact process. Today you know it as Twitter. Yeah, surprising, right?
The line should be going down again.
I can't comment on that. But here's the thing, right? What's interesting is they went through a very similar process. So if you look at the background of history of Twitter and Jack Dorsey, Twitter was like a side project that they started for audio. And they launched a bunch of products. They tried setting it up, what would get traction. And what ended up getting traction was this small thing called Twitter, right? But it initially launched as a product for podcasts. Same with, actually, interestingly, is also Instagram. So Instagram actually launched first as an app called Bourbon, right? And it would be like a Foursquare kind of app where you'll take a photo and you'll check in. So it was essentially check in with photos. But what happened is they listened to their most active users, and the users said, like, we actually like the photo. They were more interested in taking photos than checking in. So they scrapped it and relaunched it as an app that purely takes photos and adds filter on top. And that's how Instagram started, right? So you'll always find these iterations will happen. You might not know it. and it'll happen in your business as well. So it'll happen at a small scale, it might happen at a larger scale, but there will be iterations.
I'm curious about one thing, about time. In your opinion and your observations of all the successful unicorns out there, what is the time averagely from MVP to product market fit?
Okay, so the question is, what is the time it takes from MVP to product market fit? Could be anything. I have seen.
What is your observation?
No, it could be anything. I have seen from weeks to years, right?
Try to average it.
Yeah, so you can't average it. So I can't take names, but I know for companies, for example, right now, which are Sunicorns, so that is they are very close to becoming unicorns. That I know the founders, and they were in the MVP stage for literally years, right? And they found something, iterated, and then that grew. So it could be years, it could be weeks. Of course, the shorter it is, the better it is, because you essentially, once you get product market fit, you grow like crazy, right? So the shorter it is, your aim is to make it as short as possible, but there's no average time. All right, let me give you an example. Do you guys know of this company called PayPay? So PayPay is a QR code payments processor in Japan, right? And they essentially it's a joint venture of Yahoo and SoftBank, right? Now they launched the product in like 3 months, right? So they iterated and launched their product in 3 months. They did keep doing iterations. Oops, sorry. And in 1 year, they got 20 million customers, right? Now, for those of you who don't know, Japan is a very enterprise kind of market, especially in financial services, right? You've got a lot of big banks there. So this was unprecedented in Japan, getting 20 million customers in 1 year, right? And the key here, again, is essentially the MVP, right? They got the MVP, they launched it, they were able to get the distribution, and now they have the distribution. 20 million is a big distribution that you have in any country, right? Now, what surprises people sometimes is it also goes down to your technology stack, and that's why I brought this example. Because if you want to launch quickly and scale quickly, you need to ensure that you are using the most cutting edge technology, right? That you are not rebuilding everything yourself. Like for example, like good developers, and I know because I used to be one. I don't know if I was good, but I was a developer a long time ago. But we like to create stuff, man. We like to own stuff, right? But that might not be the right thing for the startup, because as a startup, you want to build your product as fast as possible. And in order to do that, you have to decide between build and buy, right? A lot of time developers think building is cheaper because I don't have to spend a monthly amount, XYZ dollars. But if you take in terms of how much time you'll take extra to build the product rather than just buy it, you might actually lose money, right? So you have to essentially factor yourself in making sure you use the latest technology, right? And if you look at PayPay, the reason I put this, look at the number of products they use from us, right? They use EC2, they use Elastic Cache, they use Guard Duty, they use S3. For those who are not tech, you might not get this, but that's not a worry. We can work with you later on to help you understand this. But it makes a big difference when you are able to just use technology that somebody else has created, and then as Lego blocks to build your product on top, because then you can go to market a lot faster, right? That's one of the things that AWS does, right? We have 200 plus products across compute, databases, cloud storage, machine learning, so that you don't have to recreate it. And therefore, your time to launch your product, and the question that you asked, reducing the time to go from MVP to product market fit is then lesser, because you can iterate on your product a lot faster. So if you see here what they've done, they actually use microservices, right? So microservices means they can launch each service runs independently of the other, right? So if they want to make edits, they want to deploy quicker, make changes to each microservice quicker, it's faster to do, right? So I'm just going to talk, since we talked about PayPay, These are some of the services we see fintechs use in the start. This is just to get started. They end up using a lot more later on. I'm not going to go deep dive now, but if any of you have questions, we are here. You can catch any of one of us, and we're happy to answer, right? But these are some of the products that we see fintechs using specifically, right? Now, another example I want to take is Zerodha. Have you heard of this company called Zerodha? So it's an Indian company. They are like, have you heard of Robinhood?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're like Robinhood for India, right? So they do like 5 million trades a day, right? And one of the things that happened to them is, and the reason I'm giving this example is I want to show you how innovation just doesn't stop at the start, right? You can become like a massive unicorn doing 5 million trades a day and then still have need to do innovation. Here it's 3 million, they now do over 5 million trades a day. And what used to happen, these trades have to be settled, so you need to create contracts, right? So this is trading on the stock market, right? So each trade that is done, you need to create, or a settlement that is done, you need to create a contract. That contract generation used to take them 8 hours, right? So they put in a team to kind of fix it. And what they did is they were able to use something called AWS Lambda, which is our serverless product. And they were able to do this in parallel. And what used to take them 8 hours then took them just 3 minutes, right? Takes them between 3 to 5 minutes to finish it. So what does that do? 8 hours is your working day. If your trades take longer than 8 hours to settle, it means you risk the settlement not happening in time, right? That could be a business risk, could also be a compliance risk. By being able to automate it, by being able to innovate on this and reduce it from 8 hours to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, they were essentially able to remove that risk, which means they were able to push their marketing engine to grow even more, right? The reason I bring this up is innovation continues, so you don't just stop, right? There's an example of product market fit for this one service of theirs, right? Now, I want to change gears quickly. I'm going to quickly talk about how Amazon thinks about innovation, right? So this is what we do internally. We've got different ways. I'm going to talk about one of the mechanisms that we do. It works for us, may work for you, may not work for you, but I'm going to cover this and it'll also answer your question over there, right? Any questions until here? Anyone else has questions before I take it further? Because I'm going to change gears a little bit.
We can take a picture.
Yeah, you can take. Yeah, that's fine. Right? So in Amazon, we have something called leadership principles. How many of you know about our leadership principles? We have 16 leadership principles. So when you go back and search for leadership principles, we got 16. The very first one on top is customer obsession. We believe in starting with the customer and then working backwards, right? Anything that you should do, you should have a clearly identified customer and understanding of the customer's problem, right? And this goes back to people you mentioned, right? Understanding your customer. Great products and services come from deeply understanding the customer. Now, like I said, these are some of our big tenets of innovation. You should go online and search for Amazon leadership principles. You'll find them. But here are top 4 which are important for us in this context. 1, customer obsession. Start with the customer, understand the customer well. Long-term thinking. So we tend to think quite long-term in Amazon in terms of a lot of programs we launch and things that we do. Third one is actually very important, the willingness to fail. As humans, we are kind of, ashamed of failure, right? We're shy of failure. But if you look at that graph, up, down, each down was failure, right? And if you have to go from MVP to product market fit, you have to fail quickly and cheaply. Yes, think about that. So you can't be shy of failure. Your aim should be to fail quickly, cheaply, till you get product market fit, right? So don't be afraid of failure, but that doesn't mean that I welcome it. Essentially think of easy ways to experiment, easy ways to find out whether your hypothesis is working or not. And the last one is we are okay to be misunderstood for a long amount of time. So AWS, like very famously, people didn't get it for a very long time, right? We understood it. Normally, people didn't get it, right? So let's take this. So like I said, we start with the customer and work backwards. So we have multiple mechanisms. I'm going to cover one mechanism that we have here, and that is called the PR FAQ. So what is a PR FAQ? PR FAQ is the press release, right? And FAQ is frequently asked questions. So in Amazon, before you launch a product, before you launch a program, you write something called a press release, right? And it looks actually like a press release. When you see in a newspaper, oh, this has been launched, this company has launched this product, Amazon has launched this product, Amazon has launched Prime, You see that? Those are press releases. So we actually, for products that are created, we write internal press releases, right? Why? Anyone know why we write press releases? Normally what happens is, generally people create a product, then they give it to the marketing department, and the marketing department writes a press release. We do it the other way. We write the press release first. Any idea why? Because the customers are here. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So he said because for the to give it from the customer's point of view, and that is exactly what it is. Because when you think about products, you think about features, but when you write a press release, you think in terms of the customer. Because one of the things you have to put in a press release is, how does this benefit the customer? Who is the customer? Comes to your point. And how does it benefit him? Or how does it benefit her? Right? So this is something we write before we build products. Before we build. We don't write a single line of code without a press release being written.
And does this press release actually go out, or is like stays in?
No, it's internal. It's internal.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question was, is this go out or is it internal? No, it's internal. So why again? I'll cover.
So you kind of serve like a brief for your product guys, right? Like, this is why we are building it. These are the customers. What's their problem? What they will be saying. Like kind of framing the vision up ahead, like 3 months from now.
So what he's saying is, this is to put the vision and make it very clear what the customer is, what the features you want. Yes, that is correct. But it also acts as an internal document that everyone can read, right? So what happens is, you write a press release. In addition to that, you write FAQs. That is frequently asked questions. So answers to frequently asked questions. Then we internally, what we do is, it's essentially a conversation starter. So the people will sit down on the table. They'll read the press release, they'll read the FAQ, and they'll ask questions, right? They'll ask doubts. Based on that, the press release is iterated upon, right? So instead of iterating a product, you're iterating the press release. Make sense? We discuss it, we ask, we debate it, we ask hard questions, and that makes you revise the press release more and more and more and more. And how does this help? It helps in getting clarity across everything, because if you have one person thinking about everything, you'll never have clarity. But if you have a document that everyone is reading, you're more likely to find problems with it, right? You're more likely to find out what is missing from it. Make sense? Right? Yes, you have a question?
User stories.
User stories. Yes. So the question is, do we put user stories? Yes, we do. So the press release actually has a hypothetical user story, right? To show how the user used the product and how it benefited him. So you actually have a customer there, right? So stuff like price point that I discussed before, that'll get highlighted here. Because guess what, suppose we're selling something to students and we say it's $100 a month. Students are not going to buy that. Somebody on the table will say, this is not going to work, right? Before you launch the product.
If you have the press release and you keep iterating it, right? But I've got a question, which is, do you actually validate it outside? Like, say your persona is a student, 21 years old. Do you actually go out to find the 21-year-olds and validate it and then iterate the product, or it's just internal and for the product?
So the question is, should you go out and validate it? You could go out and validate it, right? As a startup, you should do that, right? It's the easiest way to go and validate it. Right? Go and talk to your customers. That's what Eric Rice talks in Lean Startup as well. Go out and talk to your customers. Don't sit in a room. Right? So as startups, you should 100% do that. That's the reason I like speaking to founders, because when I'm here, I get to know what your problems are much more better than if I'm in a room somewhere. Make sense? Okay. Yes?
How many times did you iterate? Do you decide that it's the idea is already good enough for
That's difficult to say because it depends on who's reading. But until you are certain that you've kind of got that fit, there's a feeling, right? Like people agree, everyone's agreeing to it, and you feel like from different diverse people, right? So as startups, what you could do is like give it to other founders, right, and have a discussion on it. Give it to your mentors, investors, right, and have a discussion on it, and see where it falls, and let the data speak, right? So when you speak to customers, and you get data points, you use that, right, in the press release, right? And what this does is, this will push you to invent on behalf of your customer. And then you don't have the case where you have an idea and you're looking for a problem to solve, which is quite common in early stages, right? Because you're looking everything, you look at everything from the point of view of a customer. The PR FAQ forces you to do that, right? What is the benefit? You identified the customer problem, you identified who the customer is, and you identified what proposed solutions work and don't work, right? For example, if the pricing is not right, you know right away in the PR FAQ before you build the product. So if it costs you like $90 to build a product for students, to run it per month, it's not going to work, right? Students are not going to pay you $90 a month or $100 a month, right? Your go-to-market strategy is very clear. Who's your target market? How are you going to reach them? Because that will be there in your PR FAQ, right? What is the strategy you're going to use to go to the market? Your PR is already ready when you launch the product. So when you speak to your investors, right? And this really helps when you're pitching your product to investors, because I'm surprised so often when founders struggle to pitch their product properly. You should be able to tell it very easily in 30 seconds to an investor. Give them a high-level view in 30 seconds. This process will make sure you're able to do that, which means your ability to communicate to investors to raise funds is a lot better.
Can you go a little deeper, Sandeep? Can you go a little deeper on how?
Sorry, just 1 minute. I'll come to the question. And the most important is this thing: before you write a single line of code. Writing code is expensive. You have to hire people. You have to write it. You got to make changes. This is just a Word document. You can write it on Word. You can write it on Notepad. Whatever, doesn't matter. It's a lot cheaper to iterate on a Notepad or a Word document than to change lines of code, right? Which means that time to go from MVP to product market fit has reduced. And that's what we spoke about, remember? Yeah, sorry?
New question. Since that's the case, right, do you have instances where you do the whole PR thing, pivot here and there, after 3 months you're like, oh, you know what, you can't write a line of code like this, you know what, trash it, next.
Yeah, it happens. So this reduces the probability of failure, does not eliminate it. Sorry. Thanks, Nisha. So the question was, after doing this process, do you end up thrashing the whole idea, or does it lead to failures, right? Yes, it just minimizes the probability of failure. It does not remove the probability of failure. I don't know if you guys know, Amazon launched a phone one point of a time. Do you guys know? We had a phone. It was called the Fire phone. And we didn't sell much of it. It's fact. It's a failure. But guess what? That same team that made the Fire phone took the lessons from the Fire phone and made a device that is there everywhere in the market. The Alexa and Echo devices. Yes, who said Alexa? Yep, Alexa and Echo devices.
Do you get the Alexa?
Yeah. Thankfully, we don't have any in the room that have started talking now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so so they took the learnings from Fire Phone. So the Fire Phone was a disaster. We didn't sell much from it. But the team took that back, and they were able to reinvent on top of it. Right? We had a significant write-off from that, but you also have a significant success. So does it mean that you won't fail? No, but it reduces, it minimizes the probability of failure. Right? How are we on time, Nisha?
We have 17 minutes.
70 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to go through this a little fast because you guys mostly are early stage, but there are certain things that happen as you grow. Is you go from early stage to like Series B, Series A, you're going to change. So, and this is a big adaptation you have to do as founders, because what will happen is as a founder in the early stage, you will be doing everything. Many of you will write code by yourself. You'll be, doing the marketing strategy. After that, you got to get people to do it. Right? So there's a shift in mentality that comes in. So, the culture changes. You got to focus on hiring people with the right culture, building a culture for your company, right? So there's a very famous saying culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's true, right? And each company has got its own unique culture. The other thing is, like I mentioned, is hiring. You will look from like being the CTO, like early, it's quite often like when I will speak to founders, especially if they're like single founders, they'll be doing multiple things at the same time, right? They might be writing code and they might be talking to the investors. But once you become a little later stage, Series B, Series C, especially Series B onwards, you start hiring people, you start hiring sales teams. So very common is, for example, early stage, until Series A, founders will sell products themselves. Right? They'll go and pitch to each customer. But once you reach Series B, you'll essentially have a team that will do it for you. And you speak to the biggest customers then, right? And tech choices change the same way. You become more granular, you need more analytics that will be used as you expand, because once you're Series B, Series C, you'll have so much data that you will not be able to understand what your customers want. So you'll have to run analytics, you'll have to run machine learning, right? You'll have to iterate on your product a lot better and a lot more different than in the early stage. But this is, right now, since most of you are early stage, I'm going to keep it to that. A good example is Neo, actually. So, in fact, I have a Neo card, it's in my bag. So they give these Forex cards, and they tie up with a bank for that. It's a fintech. And what happened is, as they grew, they realized they wanted to partner with more banks, right? And they had to scale. But partnering with banks is not easy because a lot of banks have on-premise servers, whereas Neo is on AWS. So they wanted a solution that would run both on-premise and on AWS, and interacts with both of them very easy. So they did containerization. So they used Kubernetes. So for the tech folks here who know Kubernetes, we have a service called Elastic Kubernetes Service. I can see some head shaking. Yes, EKS. So they use EKS because EKS has got this feature called EKS Anywhere, which allows you to run it across on-premise and AWS. And they were able to do that. So the whole thing, and it's not an easy product because it has to be PCI DSS compliant. PCI DSS is essentially payment compliance. PCI DSS is a global standard that payment companies have to follow, right? So the folks are in payments, Dwip Pay, there's one more gentleman there. It's a pretty hefty standard to adhere to, but they were able to do the whole thing, and it enabled them to then move faster. All right, this is my last slide, and this slide is going to focus on how we help at different stages address these issues. All right, so the most important for you guys since you're early is AWS Activate. How many of you know AWS Activate? Show of hands. Couple of hands. Oh, wow. I get to speak about AWS Activate. It reminds me of my early days in AWS when people didn't know about Activate much. So AWS Activate is our product, it's our program to help early stage startups, right? So if you're an early stage startup, what do you want? You want to build MVP fast or slow?
Fast.
Sure?
Don't want to spend money.
You don't want to spend money. There you go, see, you've picked up. You want to make it fast. You don't want to spend money, right? While building products, does your technology team have questions? Does that come up? Yes or no? Has everyone gone to sleep? No? Okay, good. So your tech team will have questions, right? Do you want the tech team to have their questions answered or not? Yes? Good, so you need support, right? You need support. You need access to training programs. That's what AWS Activate does. So it gives you access to credits. So what happens is if you have AWS credits, then you don't spend on the initial, your initial usage on AWS, right? Because you got credits. You get access to support. So when you have questions regarding AWS products, your team can go create a support ticket and ask questions, right? You get access to training material, right? We also have something called office hours where you could, once your architecture is done, you can actually get it vetted by, discuss it with one of our solutions architect, right? You can bring your architecture in and then they'll tell you, hey, and you can ask them questions. Am I doing this correct? Am I doing this wrong? Right? And they'll answer. So you get that advice as well. That all comes as a part of AWS Activate, right? Now, for Philippine Startup Week, we have a virtual booth on their platform. And so you guys can go on the virtual booth to get more information on it as well, right? But if you're not a part of Activate, you should be, right?
So can you say this as well online? But basically, as part of the Philippine Startup Week, we want to support the startup ecosystem. So if you go to our virtual booth on Active Events, where you guys see the details of all the Philippine Startup Week agenda, within our booth, we actually have details in terms of application process that you guys can apply to be for the credits as well. So please do visit for more details. And Sandy, if you can basically say that for the online audience. That would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so for the folks online, we have a virtual booth at Philippine Startup Week. This is our way to help our customers in Philippines, help them build products, help them build faster. And you could go there and there's an application form that you can fill to get access to the AWS Activate programs, right? You can ask us questions as well over there. So please feel free to go there and fill the application form, right? But this is, as early stage startups, you should be doing this. And this gives you access to all of this, like training, labs, support, consulting. It gives you access to all of that, right? Okay, so that's about it. And any other questions that you have, open, the floor is open.
Yeah, so the last slide that you guys talked about, so is that just for the tech space, or is that also a space for, like foundations that want to innovate the way they try to do their donor engagement?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you repeat it
So
again?
like the slide that you just saw, you
This one?
flashed.
This one?
So this is mostly for startup programs, and that actually has a in the tech industry, or is this something also that can be applied for foundations who want to innovate the way they do donor engagement?
What do you mean foundations?
Like NGOs, non-governmental organizations.
Okay, so the question is, can NGOs use this? So NGOs actually have a different program. So the public sector team has a different program that they use. So I'm not sure whether it's launched in Philippines or not. So the question was, can NGOs also use this? So if you're a startup, 100% you can use this, right? Whether you're focused on...
Please send me a message and I'll connect you to the right person.
Yeah, so Nisha will connect you. Yeah.
How about for the academic universities? For the academic universities.
For the university, okay, the question is for the universities, right? So we do tie up with universities with their, if the universities have like an innovation lab or a startup lab that they have, so we do tie up with them. We have a bunch of them across APAC. So here as well, if your university doesn't already have a program, then you could get in touch with us again, fill that form, right? Because what happens when you fill that form, we get to know, and then we can request you to make an introduction. Since you are here, for those who are here, you can directly speak to to Nisha or one of the other folks from AWS here, and we can help guide you on that.
Yeah, if you're universities and you want to work with AWS to support your innovation program, your startup program, please talk to me, and then we can have a conversation about that. And also for those that are online, they can basically go to our virtual booth, chat with us, send us a message. My name is Nisha, so send Nisha a message on the virtual booth, and I will get back.
Yeah. So for those who are online, you can go to the virtual booth again through the Philippine Startup Week platform, and you can send Nisha a message. So just ask for Nisha and send her a message, and we'll get back to you then. Sorry, there was a question here?
Yeah, it's kind of validation or about AWS Activate. The first thing is we availed the startup credits, I think the 1,200 something. And then we won several competitions. And then, like for example, Madam gave us something like 5,000 USD.
Yeah, I think 5,000.
Yeah, 5,000 USD. So that we need to activate also, right? And then some other group also gave us something like 25,000 credit, you know. So if we have this, first we activated the startup, 1,200. So we still able to add or top up our credits on that, no problem. Right?
Yeah. So the question is, can the credits be topped up? Yes, you can. So the way the credits work is they got levels. So when you get extra credits, then you will be topped up to the next level of credit. So for example, if you have availed $1,000 before, and you get access to an incubator that has got a $5,000 program with us, then you'll get the difference. 5,000 minus 1,000, that is $4,000.
So it will gonna go to the same
Yes.
account, right?
Yeah, it'll go to the same account. Yes, it'll go to the exact same account. So it's levels. So you won't get an additional 5,000. You'll get an additional 4,000 because think of these as credit levels and not credit
So
amounts.
there's no minimum. Let's say we get something 100,000 USD credits.
Yeah, that's the maximum.
Okay.
Up to 100,000 is the maximum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
In the state level, do you see the Philippines as becoming conducive for building unicorns? Like, we know that there are potential unicorns in the Philippines.
Okay, so the question is, sorry, I thought you.
I'm good.
Yeah. So the question is, do you see Philippines having unicorns? Well, you got a population of 110 million. It's not small. Vastly English speaking, right? So again, not small. And it's more like the maturity of the country, right? So I've seen multiple countries go through this process. I was a founder in India when India did not have a single unicorn. India now has over 100 unicorns, right? So when things change, it changes fast. Is there potential? Of course, there is, absolutely. When you have like a big population, it's always easier, it's a bigger market to get started. So even it's about getting scale, right? It's about getting the distribution right. So yeah.
I think I just want to add to what Sandeep just said in regards to your question. I come from Malaysia, by the way. I'm sure you have heard news. I mean, Malaysia and unicorns, right? And Malaysia unicorns will all end up in Singapore, right? That's why, but I think the market which has the most problems are the most potential with more unicorns. And I think Malaysia started from there as well.
Yeah.
One of our biggest problems was actually, and the reason why most of our unicorns ended up in Singapore was actually more of like e-government support. We got so fed up we get out. But I just want to just also circle back to this, the AWS Activate. I would like to still consider myself startup. We are raising our Series B. And let me tell you, 3 years ago.
You want a mic?
No, we're basically.
You'll have to be a little quicker so I can tell them online. Others online, they'll be wondering what's happening. Why am I just staring at them?
Chain, right? And we built it, and we developed and we built a product with AWS free credits all the way. So we feel, I think we got the $5,000 US. And I remember telling my product manager, we have $5,000 US to fill. After that, you cannot fill anymore because it gets very expensive. Today, I think we're spending. So just to give you an idea of what we do, 11/11 was just last weekend. Every one of you buys stuff, right? That's where I start to pay AWS a lot of money. Every transaction that comes in, and we're at a stage right now, no more free credits. If I can talk to Nisha for some free credits, I'll appreciate it.
Just to reiterate for those online, he already got free credits. He did his MVP. He's scaling. He's going Series B, but he wants even more free credits.
Series B, and
There
then he
should
wants
be
more
some,
credit.
yeah. because-
So our credits are valid only to Series A, by the way. So after that, we can't.
So just to give you an idea, today we spend about between $4,000 to $5,000 a month on AWS, and it's painful. It's very, very painful. It's very painful.
Just wait till you get to Series D. You'll pay 10 times more.
I'm getting out by then. 11/11 last weekend, we had about 200,000 orders across the whole Southeast Asia. About 5.5 million SKU line items that went through. So every time you add to cart and check out, I pay you. Right? But let me tell you this, to get to this, and it ties back down to product market fit. Just very interestingly, 2 days ago, someone asked me, have you guys achieved product market fit? And my immediate answer was, I don't think so. We're still looking for it. Because it's just, hence my question. When do you say, okay, you know what, product market fit done, now channel market fit?
Yeah, so no, that's a very interesting question, because what happens is, as you keep, yeah, I'm repeating the question. So the question is like, so what he said is that somebody asked him, he's almost to the stage of Series B, but somebody asked him, does he have product market fit, and he thinks he doesn't have it yet. And this is normal, because what will happen is you're trying to get more and more distribution and faster distribution, right? So the key thing, what you start innovating after Series B, Series C, Series D, is how do you get more and more distribution, right? And you have to look at different strategies. That's where I said like Series B plus. I didn't go into it too detailed, but essentially what happens is, for example, if you look at, let's take financial services, right? You open an account at the bank, but the same bank will also sell you, capital markets trading. They'll sell you insurance. They'll sell you a credit line. Why? Because for them to get more distribution, they have to sell more products, right? So what does happen is, after you reach a certain stage, you'll have to cross-sell and upsell, right? So you'll have to get different products to sell, right? You will also have to target newer markets, and those newer markets will require different types of products, right? So you look at ASEAN as a Southeast Asia as a region, right? Singapore is very different from Philippines, right? It's very different. So if you're going to launch a product in Singapore, it is not going to be the same product that you launch in Philippines. You've got to fine-tune it a little differently, right? By the way, also talking about the unicorn thing, like it just struck me, look at Israel. Population is 5 million, they got like 50 plus unicorns. Yeah, 50 plus. That's because, they focus on products that they sell to the US and Europe markets. But population of just 5 million, right? So the data is there.
That's why they can afford their military expenditures.
I cannot comment on that. So you're talking about military expenditures, I cannot comment. Okay, any other questions that we have here? Anything else?
Last question.
Last question? Yeah.
So basically, what we're talking about, with this whole life cycle, where AWS fits in, it's really what you said in the very first beginning, that when you want to have the cutting edge and best people on it as soon as possible, even before you go to MVP.
Yeah. So you want to use like for example, if you're building, let me give you an example, right? Suppose you're building, you want to convert voice to text, for example, right? You're building an app and you want to convert voice to text. Don't end up building that model for yourself. If it's English, we have a service called Lex that you can use, right? So it's easier for you to get quickly plugged into that and get started, right? I'll give you an example. Like we have companies in India, like actually across APJ, where KYC is really important in financial services, right? In Fintech. And in KYC, you have to do something called a liveliness check. That is, because you're doing digital KYC, you're doing it remote, how do you check if the person is real or is it like a fake photograph they're showing? So there's a test called liveliness test that you do, where you smile, right? Now, our service recognition can identify smiles in videos, in live videos. So what some of our customers do is they use recognition rather than building the whole AI model. If they have to build that AI model themselves, it'll take them 6 months. But they're able to take recognition and use like an API, and then they're able to detect smiles in real time. So what will take like 6 months will take you maybe an hour or so, right? That's where you save that time. right, by adopting these products. So with 200 plus services and products, we'll almost have everything that you could think of, right? Awesome. I think we're on top of the hour. Yeah, 5:32, so perfect. Thank you all so much for coming here today. We are here to answer any questions. And thank you. Oh, we have goodies. We have like donuts and coffee and Coke there for all of you, for those here. So please feel free to join us for refreshments.
Also, have people from the other room come, and if you have help answer any questions that you may have as well.
Yeah. So folks who are in the other room, please do join us for refreshments in this room, and happy to answer any of the questions that you have here in real time. All right. Thank you.